The morning sky over New Montana turned dark as the Krell drop pods descended through the atmosphere. Captain Jake Morrison stood in the command center, watching the radar screen fill with hostile contacts. He had been a soldier once back on Earth, but that was 15 years ago. Now he commanded a small colonial defense force that was barely equipped to handle pirates. This was not pirates. The first pod slammed into the grasslands 3 miles from the main settlement. The impact sent a shockwave through the ground that rattled windows in the nearby buildings. Then another pod hit, and another. Within minutes, 20 massive cylinders dotted the landscape around the colony. Jake grabbed the communications console. His hands were steady, even though his heart was pounding. All defense units, this is Morrison. We have multiple hostile landings. Get everyone to the shelters. This is not a drill. Lieutenant Amy Carter was stationed at the southern checkpoint when the pods began opening. She watched through her binoculars as the first creature emerged. It was massive, easily the size of a small truck covered in black scales that looked like armor plating. The thing had 6 legs, each ending in claws that dug into the earth. Its head was mostly mouth filled with teeth the length of her forearm. "Command, are you seeing this?" Amy spoke into her radio, trying to keep her voice calm. "We see it," Jake responded. "What's your assessment?" "These things look like they were built to kill. We need to evacuate the outer farms immediately." The creature that Amy was watching suddenly turned its head toward the nearest building. It moved with terrifying speed for something so large. Within seconds, it had crossed 200 yards and crashed through the wall of a storage facility. The sound of tearing metal echoed across the plain. Jake activated the colony-wide alarm system. The sound pierced through every building, every home, every street. People had practiced evacuation drills, but this was real. Families grabbed their children and ran for the underground shelters. Farmers abandoned their equipment and fled, but not everyone ran. On the Patterson farm, 5 miles east of the main settlement, old Henry Patterson heard the alarm and saw the drop pods landing. He was 70 years old and had been farming his whole life, first on Earth and then here on New Montana for the past decade. He wasn't going to leave his land without a fight. Henry's dog Duke, a massive German Shepherd mix, sensed something was wrong. The dog stood at the fence line, hackles raised, growling at something in the distance. Duke had protected this farm from coyotes, from wildcats, from anything that threatened the livestock. He was about to face something much worse. The Ravager, as the Krell called their war beasts, came through the northern pasture. It moved like liquid death, its 6 legs carrying it faster than any creature that size should move. The cattle scattered in panic. Duke didn't scatter. He charged. Henry shouted for his dog to come back, but Duke wasn't listening. The big dog hit the Ravager from the side, 80 pounds of muscle and fury. His teeth found the creature's rear leg and locked on. The Ravager shrieked, a sound that made Henry's blood run cold. The beast spun, trying to shake the dog loose, but Duke held on. 2 more dogs appeared from the neighboring farm. They were working dogs, bred and trained to protect livestock. They saw Duke fighting, and their instincts took over. They attacked together, one going for the front legs, the other circling to bite at the creature's hindquarters. The Ravager was confused. It had been engineered to hunt and kill, but it had never faced prey that fought back like this. The creature's genetic programming told it to dominate, to kill quickly and move on. But these smaller creatures weren't running. They were attacking as a group. Back at the command center, Jake was coordinating the defense when one of his officers called out. "Captain, you need to see this." Camera feed from the eastern sector. Jake pulled up the video on the main screen. He watched in disbelief as 3 dogs fought the alien war beast. They weren't winning exactly, but they were holding it. They were working together, taking turns darting in to bite and then retreating before the creature could counterattack. "Are those farm dogs?" Amy asked, having returned to the command center. "Yeah," Jake said slowly, "and they're doing better than our automated defenses." The automated turrets had been firing at the Ravagers since they emerged, but the creatures moved too fast and their scales were too thick. Most of the shots missed or bounced off harmlessly. The few Ravagers that had been injured simply retreated temporarily before returning to the attack. But the dogs were different. They were small enough to get under the creature's defenses. They were fast enough to dodge the claws and teeth. And most importantly, they worked together. Jake made a decision. "Get me Lisa Grant. Now." Lisa Grant was the colony's chief veterinarian. She had spent 20 years studying animal behavior before coming to New Montana. She arrived at the command center within 10 minutes, still wearing her work coveralls. Tell me you have good news, she said. Jake pointed at the screen showing the dogs fighting the Ravager. Can we use this? Lisa watched the footage carefully. Her mind was already racing through everything she knew about canine behavior, pack dynamics, and predator-prey relationships. The Ravagers are solo hunters. They're engineered for individual combat. Our dogs still have pack instincts. They know how to hunt together. How many working dogs do we have in the colony? Maybe 70 or 80. Ranch dogs, security dogs, some trained for search and rescue. Why? Jake turned to face her. Because I think our dogs just found the weakness in those things. Can you organize them? Train them to work together against these creatures? Lisa looked at the screen again. On the display, the 3 dogs were still fighting. Duke finally had to let go when the Ravager threw him against a fence post, but he got back up and returned to the fight. The creature was bleeding now from multiple wounds. It wasn't dead, but it was hurting. I need 4 hours, Lisa said, and access to every dog handler in the colony. You have 3 hours, Jake replied. The Krell are sending ground troops. They'll be here in 8 hours. If we can't stop these war beasts before then, we're finished. Amy stepped forward. What do you need from us? Weapons, ammunition, and people who know how to use them. The dogs can't kill these things alone, but if we work together, if we coordinate like a real pack, we might have a chance. Jake looked around the command center at his officers. They were scared. He was scared too, but they were also determined. This was their home. These people had come here to build something new, something better. They weren't going to let alien monsters take it away. All right, he said. Lisa, gather your dogs and handlers. Amy, organize the militia into support teams. We're going to show these Krell what it means to attack a colony protected by humanity's best friends. Outside, the battle continued. The Ravagers were spreading through the colony, destroying buildings and attacking anyone they found. But more dogs were joining the fight now. Ranch dogs, guard dogs, even family pets were engaging the creatures. They fought with courage that their ancestors had shown 10,000 years ago, when wolves first decided to hunt alongside humans. The Krell had unleashed their perfect war beasts. They thought humans would be easy prey. They were about to learn that humanity had spent 30,000 years turning wolves into something more dangerous than any engineered predator. Loyal, intelligent partners who would fight to the death to protect their pack. Lisa Grant stood in the center of the agricultural dome and looked at the chaos around her. 73 dogs filled the massive space along with their handlers. Some dogs were barking, some were trying to establish dominance over each other, and some were simply confused about why they had been gathered here. Her assistant, Pete Harris, walked up beside her. He was only 25 years old, but had grown up training border collies on his family's ranch back on Earth. This is crazy, he said. We have 3 hours to turn this into something useful. Not crazy, Lisa replied. Necessary. She climbed onto a platform so everyone could see her. The handlers gradually quieted down, calling their dogs to attention. Lisa took a deep breath. She had trained animals her whole life, but she had never done anything like this. Listen carefully, she called out. Those creatures attacking our colony are called Ravagers. They're engineered to be perfect killing machines. They're stronger than our dogs, faster, more dangerous. But they have a weakness. She pulled up a holographic display showing footage of the fights that had already happened. The Ravagers hunt alone. Each one is a solo predator. They have no pack structure, no coordination. That's why our dogs have been able to hurt them. Dogs know how to work together. A handler named Greg Palmer raised his hand. He was ex-military, had trained detection dogs in the Marines. His dog scout, a Belgian Malinois, sat perfectly still beside him. What's the plan? We're going to use what these dogs already know, Lisa explained. We're not teaching them to be soldiers. We're organizing their natural instincts. Wolves survived for millions of years not by being the strongest predators, but by being the smartest, by hunting in packs, by coordinating their attacks. She divided the space into 3 sections. Herding dogs go to the left, guardian breeds in the middle, hunting and working dogs to the right. We're going to create teams based on what each dog does best. Pete helped organize the chaos. The border collies, Australian shepherds, and cattle dogs moved to one area. These were dogs bred for centuries to control the movement of livestock. They could run all day, make quick decisions, and respond instantly to handler commands. In the middle section, the guardian breeds assembled. Kangals, Rottweilers, German shepherds, and mixed breeds with protection training. These dogs were built for defending territory and fighting when necessary. They were larger, more powerful, bred to face wolves and bears. The right section held the hunting dogs and working breeds. Malinois like Scout, Labrador retrievers trained for search and rescue, even a few sled dogs from the northern mining outposts. These were intelligent, high-energy animals that lived to work with their handlers. Lisa walked between the groups explaining the strategy. The herding dogs will control the Ravagers' movement. You'll use the same techniques you use on cattle or sheep, but scaled up. Get them moving where we want them. Separate them from each other, drive them into ambush positions. She moved to the Guardian breeds. You'll be the front line. When a Ravager is isolated and controlled, you engage, but not alone. Never alone. You work in pairs minimum, preferably groups of 3 or 4. Hit from multiple angles, rotate attacks, give each other time to recover. Finally, she addressed the hunting and working dogs. You're the specialists. Some of you will work with the herding dogs, helping drive and chase. Others will work with the Guardians, coordinating attacks. And the smartest ones, the ones with the strongest bonds to your handlers, you'll be team leaders. You'll translate human commands into pack action. A woman named Kelly Brooks spoke up. She ran a dog training facility and had 5 dogs with her. How do we practice this? We don't have any Ravagers to train with. Pete stepped forward. We use what we have. The militia is bringing up some of their combat robots. They're not as dangerous as the real things, but they'll give us something to practice on. For the next 2 hours, the dome filled with controlled chaos. The herding dogs practiced driving the robots, learning to work together to control something much larger than themselves. The Guardian breeds practiced coordinated attacks, learning to trust the other dogs in their group. The working dogs practiced responding to complex commands while under pressure. Lisa watched Scout work with Greg. The Malinois was incredible. He could read Greg's body language, understand complex hand signals, and respond in fractions of a second. More importantly, Scout could work with other dogs he had just met, coordinating attacks without needing verbal commands. That's our model, Lisa said to Pete. Scout and Greg are what we need every team to become. Perfect trust, perfect communication. We have 3 hours, Pete reminded her. Most of these dogs have never worked together before. Dogs are amazing learners when they're motivated. And right now they can sense the fear, the urgency. They know something bad is happening. We just need to channel that into productive action. In one corner of the dome, 3 border collies were practicing with their handlers. They were learning to drive the combat robot in specific patterns, using the same techniques they would use on stubborn cattle. One dog would push from the left, another from the right, the third from behind. The robot had no choice but to move in the direction they wanted. In another area, 4 large Guardian dogs were practicing coordinated attacks. They would circle the robot, taking turns darting in to bite and then retreating. The key was timing. If one dog attacked while another was recovering, they left themselves vulnerable. But if they rotated perfectly, the target never had a moment to counterattack effectively. Jake Morrison arrived at the dome to check on progress. He brought Amy Carter with him. They stood on the observation platform watching the training below. Will this work? Jake asked. Lisa climbed up to join them. Honestly, I don't know. But I know this. Dogs and humans have been hunting together for 30,000 years. It's in their DNA to work with us. If any animal can do this, they can. Amy pointed to a group where a dog had just knocked over one of the combat robots. These things killed our automated defenses, but a 70-pound dog just took one down. Size isn't everything, Lisa said. The Ravagers are big and strong, but they're also predictable. They charge, they bite, they use their claws. Our dogs are smaller, faster, more adaptable, and most importantly, they trust us and we trust them. With 1 hour remaining, Lisa called everyone back together. The dogs were tired but focused. Their handlers were nervous but determined. Here's how this is going to work, Lisa explained. The militia is coordinating with us. When we engage a Ravager, we'll have armed humans providing support. The dogs will control and confuse the target. The humans will deliver the killing shots. But we need perfect coordination. She pulled up a tactical map of the colony. We have 14 Ravagers still active. We're going to hunt them systematically. Herding dogs drive them into ambush zones. Guardian dogs engage and hold them. Humans finish them. Then we move to the next target. Greg raised his hand. What about casualties? These things will hurt our dogs. Lisa's expression was serious. Yes, they will. Some of our dogs might die today. That's the reality. But if we do nothing, everyone dies. The dogs, the humans, everyone. We're fighting for our home." She looked around at all the handlers. "Your dogs love you. They trust you. They'll follow you into danger because that's what dogs do. They've been doing it since wolves first approached human campfires thousands of years ago. Today, we're asking them to be what they've always been. Our partners, our protectors, our friends." The dome was silent except for the sound of dogs panting and the occasional whine. Then Greg stood up, Scout beside him. "We're in." One by one, the other handlers stood. Kelly with her 5 dogs, Pete with his border collies, Henry Patterson, who had come with Duke despite his injuries. All of them. Jake stepped forward. "The Krell ground troops land in 4 hours. If we can clear the Ravagers before then, we have a chance. If not, we're fighting a 2-front war we can't win." "Then let's get started," Lisa said. "Team leaders, get your groups organized. We move out in 15 minutes. As the handlers prepared their dogs, Lisa found a quiet corner and sat down. She was exhausted, and the real fight hadn't even started yet. A wet nose pushed into her hand. She looked down to see one of the search and rescue dogs, a golden retriever named Buddy. "Hey, boy," she said softly, scratching behind his ears. "You ready for this?" Buddy's tail wagged. He had no idea what was coming, but he trusted his handler completely. That was the magic of dogs. They didn't need to understand the big picture. They just needed to know that their human needed them. And right now humanity needed them more than ever. The sun was setting over New Montana when the first hunting team moved out. Jake Morrison led 50 militia members through the ruins of the outer settlement. With them were 12 dogs and their handlers. The team moved quietly, weapons ready, dogs alert. Scout led the group, his ears forward and body tense. Greg Palmer kept one hand on his rifle and the other ready to give Scout commands. Behind them, 5 more dogs spread out in a loose formation. They were all experienced working dogs, the ones Lisa had identified as team leaders. Amy Carter monitored the situation from a mobile command vehicle. She had drone feeds showing the entire colony. "Target located," she said quietly into the radio. 200 meters ahead, behind the destroyed warehouse. "Big one." Jake signaled the team to stop. He looked at Greg and gave a small nod. This was it. Time to see if their plan would actually work. Greg gave Scout a hand signal. The dog's posture changed immediately, becoming focused and intent. Then Greg gave the command, just a short whistle. Scout barked once, sharp and loud. The effect was immediate. 5 more dogs, positioned in a wide arc around the Ravager's location, began barking in sequence. The alien creature's head snapped left and right. It had been engineered to track prey by scent and heat, but the barking was creating confusion. The sounds came from multiple directions all around it. "Now," Jake whispered. 3 border collies appeared from different angles. They didn't attack. They just moved, darting in and out of the Ravager's vision. The creature lunged at one, but the dog was already gone. It turned to chase another, but that one had moved too. The 3rd collie circled behind. The Ravager was being herded just like a stubborn bull or an aggressive ram. It didn't realize what was happening. Its predator instincts told it to chase, to catch, to kill. But every time it moved toward one dog, the others adjusted position, pushing it in a different direction. "It's working," Amy said from the command vehicle, watching the drone feed. "They're moving it toward your position." The Ravager crashed through a damaged building wall, directly into the militia's prepared firing line. 20 rifles opened fire at once. The creature's scales deflected some shots, but concentrated fire found the weak points, the joints where the legs connected to the body, the softer scales on the neck, the eyes. The Ravager roared and charged straight at the militia. Some of the fighters flinched but held their ground. Then Scout hit the creature from the side, 60 pounds of trained aggression targeting its front leg. The Malinois' teeth sank deep into the joint and the creature stumbled. 2 Kangal dogs, each weighing over 100 pounds, followed Scout's attack. They went for the hindquarters, their powerful jaws crushing through scale and into muscle. The Ravager tried to spin, but it was off balance with 3 dogs attacking from different angles. More rifle fire. The creature was bleeding now from dozens of wounds. It tried to retreat, but the border collies had circled around behind it, barking and nipping, keeping it pushed toward the guns. "Concentrate fire on the head," Jake ordered. The next volley hit the Ravager's skull. The creature shuddered, took 2 more steps, and collapsed. It was dead. Scout released his grip and backed away, limping slightly. Greg ran to check him, but the dog seemed more proud than hurt. His tail was wagging despite a nasty scratch along his side. "One down," Jake reported over the radio. 13 to go. Across the colony, similar battles were taking place. Each team used the same basic strategy, adapted to their location and available resources. The dogs controlled the Ravagers' movement, confused them, separated them from each other. The humans provided the killing power. Lieutenant Amy Carter led a team through the agricultural sector where 3 Ravagers had been destroying food storage. Her group included Lisa Grant, 8 dogs, and 20 militia fighters. The dogs were mostly herding breeds, with 2 large guardian dogs for direct engagement. "There," Lisa pointed. A Ravager was tearing apart a grain silo, searching for hiding colonists. "Can your dog separate it from the others?" Amy asked. "Watch," Lisa signaled to the handlers. The border collies went to work. They didn't bark or make noise. They simply moved in precise patterns around the Ravager. The creature noticed them eventually and snarled. Its genetic programming identified them as threats that needed to be eliminated. The Ravager started following the dogs. It didn't realize it was moving away from its companions, being drawn into an isolated position. The border collies used every trick they knew. They moved just fast enough to stay ahead, but not so fast that the creature lost interest. They positioned themselves to trigger its territorial instincts, making it want to chase them out of its area. "It's working," Amy breathed. "It's actually following them." Within 5 minutes, the Ravager was 200 yards from its companions, focused entirely on the dogs that were taunting it. That's when the guardian breed struck. 2 massive mixed-breed dogs came from opposite sides. They didn't hesitate, didn't show fear. They had been bred for generations to protect livestock from wolves and bears. This was just another predator threatening their territory. The Ravager tried to fight both dogs at once, but it was impossible. When it focused on one, the other attacked. When it spun around, the first dog was already coming back. The border collies joined in, nipping at its legs, keeping it off balance. Amy's militia team opened fire. The Ravager went down after 30 seconds of concentrated shooting. 2 down in our sector, Amy reported, moving to the next target. By midnight, 9 Ravagers were dead. The remaining 5 had become more cautious, staying in defensive positions and avoiding open areas. They seemed to be learning that the small creatures were dangerous when they worked together. Jake gathered his team in a protected courtyard. The dogs were exhausted and several had injuries. Greg was bandaging a cut on Scout's leg while the Malinois tried to lick his face. 5 left, Jake said, but they're getting smarter. They're not chasing the dogs anymore. Lisa looked at the tactical map. Then we need to change tactics. Instead of luring them out, we need to go in after them. "That's suicide," one of the militia members said. "Those things are too dangerous in close quarters." "Not if we do it right," Lisa replied. "Dogs have been hunting in dens and confined spaces for thousands of years. Wolves used to drive prey into canyons or against cliffs. We can do the same thing." Pete Harris spoke up. "The Northern Warehouse District. It's full of narrow streets and dead ends. If we can drive the Ravagers into that area, we can control the engagement." Jake considered it. They had 3 hours until the Krell ground troops arrived. 5 Ravagers were still killing colonists and destroying infrastructure. They needed to finish this. "All right," he decided. "We'll drive them north. But we do it carefully, systematically. No heroics. The dogs and handlers who are hurt stay here. Fresh teams only." Greg stood up, Scout beside him. "We're not hurt that bad." Scout wants back in. Jake looked at the dog. Scout was limping, had scratches all over, and looked exhausted, but his tail was wagging and his eyes were bright. The dog wanted to keep fighting. "Fine," Jake said. "But you hang back, provide support only. The fresh teams take point." They organized 3 separate groups, each with a mix of herding dogs, guardian breeds, and armed humans. The plan was to push the 5 remaining Ravagers north into the warehouse district, where they could be cornered and eliminated. The operation took 2 hours. It was slow, careful work. The dogs had to approach the Ravagers without triggering an immediate attack, then gradually push them in the right direction. It was like herding the most dangerous livestock imaginable. Kelly Brooks led one team with her 5 dogs. She had been training dogs for competitions before coming to New Montana, teaching them complex commands and sequences. Now she was using those skills to coordinate a hunt. "Left flank, push," she commanded. 2 of her dogs moved to the Ravager's left side, barking to drive it right. "Center, hold." 3 dogs maintained position, blocking the creature's forward path. "Right flank, advance." The dogs on the right moved up, completing the box. The Ravager had no choice but to move north. Every time it tried to break out in a different direction, the dogs were there, pushing it back on course. It was frustrated, angry, but also confused. Its programming didn't account for coordinated pack tactics. By the time the sun started rising, all 5 remaining Ravagers were trapped in the warehouse district. Jake's teams had them surrounded, dogs and humans working together to maintain the perimeter. "Now we finish this," Jake said. The final battle was brutal but quick. The Ravagers fought desperately, but they were in unfamiliar territory and facing an enemy that wouldn't break. Dogs darted in and out of the warehouses, driving the creatures into ambush points. When a Ravager tried to hide, the dogs found it. When it tried to run, they cut it off. Scout and Greg took down the last one. The Ravager had cornered itself in a dead-end alley, and Scout led a team of 4 dogs in the final attack. They hit it from all sides at once, holding it in place just long enough for Greg and 3 other militia members to deliver the killing shots. When it was over, Jake stood in the middle of the warehouse district, surrounded by exhausted dogs and humans. 14 Ravagers dead, 0 human casualties, though several dogs needed medical attention. Lisa was already working on the injured dogs. Her veterinary supplies spread. Commander Vekthar stood in the command bay of his troop carrier, watching the tactical display with satisfaction. The human colony's defenses were gone. The Ravagers had done their job perfectly, as they always did. This would be a simple occupation mission. "All units prepare for landing," he ordered his soldiers. "Combat teams 1 through 4 will secure the central settlement. Teams 5 and 6 will eliminate any remaining resistance in the outer sectors." 200 Krell warriors filled the transport ships. They wore advanced armor that could deflect most projectile weapons. They carried plasma rifles that could burn through steel. They had conquered 17 civilizations using this exact method: drop the Ravagers to break the enemy's will, then send in troops to finish the job. The transports touched down in the fields north of the main settlement. The landing was smooth, efficient. The Krell were professionals. They had done this hundreds of times before. The rear doors opened and the warriors poured out in organized formations. They moved with confidence, expecting to find scattered resistance and terrified civilians. Instead, they found an organized defense and something completely unexpected. The first squad advanced toward the residential zone, their weapons ready. They could see human fighters dug in behind damaged buildings and debris barriers, a standard defensive position. The Krell squad leader signaled his team to prepare for assault. Then Scout appeared. The Belgian Malinois came from the eastern flank, using rubble for concealment. Greg Palmer had positioned his team perfectly, waiting for the right moment. The Krell soldiers were focused on the human positions ahead of them. They never looked down. Scout hit the rearmost Krell warrior at full speed. 60 pounds of muscle and teeth struck the alien's leg joint, exactly where Lisa had identified the weak point in their armor. The warrior went down with a startled cry. The squad turned in confusion. What was that? Their training had prepared them for enemy soldiers, for weapons fire, for tactical warfare. Not for a medium-sized animal attacking from ground level. That moment of confusion cost them. Jake's militia opened fire from their defensive positions. 3 Krell warriors fell before they could respond. "What are those creatures?" Vekthar demanded, watching through his helmet display. His tactical officer was already analyzing the data. "They appear to be Earth canines, Commander. Domesticated animals. Our intelligence reports classified them as pets. Non-threatening." "Those are not pets," Vekthar growled, watching another squad get flanked by a pack of mixed-breed dogs working in perfect coordination with human fighters. The battle spread across the colony. The Krell had superior weapons and armor, but they were fighting an enemy they didn't understand. Their tactical doctrine was designed for combat against other standing armies. They had protocols for dealing with vehicles, with air support, with defensive fortifications. They had no protocols for dealing with fast-moving animals that attacked from unexpected angles and worked in perfect sync with human defenders. Amy Carter led a counterattack on the eastern perimeter. She had 20 militia fighters and 8 dogs, including King, her German shepherd. The Krell were trying to advance in standard formation, covering each other while moving from position to position. The border collies changed everything. 3 of them started running patterns around the Krell formation. They didn't attack, just moved in calculated paths, appearing and disappearing behind cover. The Krell soldiers kept turning to track them, trying to maintain formation while dealing with these strange creatures. Now, Amy ordered. King and 3 other guardian dogs hit the Krell from behind. They went for the legs, the joints, the weak points in the armor. The Krell formation broke apart as soldiers tried to defend themselves from attacks coming from ground level. Amy's militia used the confusion to advance, firing from multiple angles. The Krell squad retreated, and the dogs pursued them, nipping and harassing, never letting them regroup. In the northern sector, Kelly Brooks was demonstrating what trained competition dogs could do in combat. Her 5 dogs worked like a precision machine, responding to her commands with instant obedience. "Left flank engage," she called. 2 dogs peeled off and attacked a Krell squad from the side. "Center, hold position." 2 more dogs blocked a choke point, preventing the Krell from advancing. "Right flank support." The 5th dog joined human fighters in a coordinated assault. The Krell soldiers were adapting, learning to watch for the dogs, but it was too late. They were already off balance, their formations disrupted, their confidence shaken. Commander Vekthar watched his carefully planned invasion fall apart. His warriors were taking casualties at an unacceptable rate. Worse, they were being outmaneuvered by creatures they had dismissed as irrelevant. "All units fall back to landing zone," he ordered. "Prepare for tactical retreat." But Jake had anticipated this. He had positioned teams around the Krell landing site. When the alien warriors tried to withdraw, they found their transports under attack. Pete Harris led the team assaulting the landing zone. He had brought the sled dogs from the northern outposts, tough animals bred for endurance in harsh conditions. While human fighters kept the Krell busy, the dogs went to work on the transports themselves. They tore into landing gear, damaged external systems, chewed through cables and hoses. The dogs couldn't destroy the ships, but they could disable them enough to prevent a quick evacuation. A Krell warrior tried to stop them, firing his plasma rifle at the dogs. But sled dogs were fast and smart. They dodged, scattered, then regrouped to continue their sabotage. When the warrior got close, 3 of them attacked together, bringing him down. Vekthar realized his situation was becoming critical. His forces were scattered, his casualties were mounting, and his transports were compromised. He had never experienced anything like this in his entire military career. "Commander, we need reinforcements," his tactical officer said urgently. "No." Vekthar made the hardest decision of his life. "Order all units to cease fire and surrender. We cannot win this battle." The surrender order spread through the Krell forces. Warriors who had been fighting moments before lowered their weapons. Some were relieved. Others were confused. All of them were exhausted. Jake received the surrender message and confirmed it with Amy. "Hold fire," he ordered across all channels. "Cease fire." "They're surrendering." The shooting stopped. An eerie silence fell over the colony, broken only by the panting of tired dogs and the groans of wounded on both sides. Vekthar walked forward from the Krell lines, his armor scorched and one arm injured. He moved slowly, showing he was not a threat. Scout walked beside Jake as they met in the middle of the battlefield. The Krell commander stared at the dog. Scout sat calmly at Jake's side, his tongue hanging out, looking like any normal dog despite having just participated in a battle that had defeated an alien army. "Those animals," Vekthar said slowly, "they obey you without question. They fight for you, sacrifice themselves for you. What power do you have over them?" Jake reached down and scratched Scout behind the ears. The dog's tail wagged, and he leaned into Jake's leg affectionately. "We don't have power over them. They're our friends, partners. They fight with us because we've been working together for longer than your civilization has existed." "Friends?" The concept seemed to confuse the Krell commander. Amy joined them with King. "We don't breed animals to be slaves or weapons. We bred them to be companions. It took 30,000 years, but we turned wolves into dogs. Not through force, but through partnership." Lisa Grant approached with her medical kit. Behind her, several colonists were already tending to injured dogs. "Your Ravagers were engineered to be perfect killers, but you made them alone, isolated, programmed only to destroy. Our dogs chose to fight with us. That's the difference." Vekthar looked around at the battlefield. Krell warriors were sitting in groups, disarmed and guarded by humans and dogs. Some of the dogs were even approaching the aliens cautiously, curious about these strange creatures. "We have conquered 17 species," Vekthar said quietly. "All of them fought with technology, with weapons, with armies. None of them had allies like this. Then you've never fought a species that understands partnership, Jake replied. Humanity doesn't just build tools, Commander. We build relationships. With each other, with our animals, with anything capable of cooperation. You saw us as weak because we care about creatures that aren't human, but that care is our greatest strength. The Krell commander was silent for a long moment, processing this information. It challenged everything his culture had taught him about strength and dominance. What are your terms for our surrender? He finally asked. Helen Price, the colonial administrator, stepped forward. She had been coordinating civilian evacuation during the battle and had just arrived. First medical treatment for all wounded, yours and ours. Then we talk about a lasting peace. Peace? Vekthar looked surprised. You defeated us. By right of conquest, you could execute us. That's not how humans do things, Helen said firmly. We fight when we must, but we prefer peace. Your people attacked us because you didn't understand us. Now you're learning. Let's make sure this never happens again. As the sun fully rose over New Montana, humans and Krell began the careful work of treating the wounded and securing the battlefield. Dogs moved among both groups. The negotiations took place in the Colonies Community Center, one of the few large buildings that hadn't been damaged in the fighting. Commander Vekthar sat across a table from Jake Morrison, Amy Carter, and Lisa Grant. Helen Price, the colonial administrator, led the human delegation. On the floor beside each human sat a dog. Scout lay next to Jake, King beside Amy, and a golden retriever named Buddy near Lisa. The dogs were calm but alert, watching the Krell commander with interest. Vekthar couldn't stop studying the animals. In all his years of military service, in all the worlds he had conquered, he had never seen anything like this. The dogs had been fierce warriors hours ago, fighting with courage and coordination that had defeated his forces. Now they rested peacefully beside their humans, looking content and relaxed. Explain to me how this is possible, Vekthar said. The Ravagers were bred through generations to be perfect warriors. How do your dogs defeat them? Lisa leaned forward. The Ravagers are perfect individual warriors. But dogs were never bred to fight alone. They were bred to work with us. To hunt with us, to protect us, to be our partners. Partners, Vekthar repeated the word slowly. It was a concept his language had a word for, but not in the context of different species. 30,000 years ago on Earth, Jake explained, wolves and humans formed an alliance, not master and slave, equal partners working together. The wolves that were brave enough to approach our campfires, that were smart enough to cooperate with us, they survived better than wolves who stayed away. Over thousands of years, they became dogs, Amy added. Dogs evolved to understand us. They can read human emotions, understand our gestures, even predict what we're thinking. No other animal can do that. It's genetic now, built into who they are. Your Ravagers are stronger and faster than our dogs, Lisa continued. But they hunt alone. They have no pack structure, no cooperation. Our dogs are never alone. They have us and we have them. Vekthar processed this information. The Krell Dominion had conquered 17 species over 3 centuries. Every one of them had fought with technology, with weapons, with organized militaries. None had shown this kind of partnership with non-sentient creatures. The Dominion has been expanding for 300 years, he said. We believed that strength came from superior technology and military discipline. You are telling me that your strength comes from your relationship with these animals? Not just animals, Helen Price said firmly. Friends. Family members. Dogs live in our homes, sleep in our beds, play with our children. They're part of human society, not tools we use. Jake reached down and scratched Scout behind the ears. The Malinois' tail thumped against the floor. Scout saved my life today at least 3 times. He didn't do it because I ordered him to. He did it because he cares about me and I care about him. That's worth more than any weapon. Vekthar was quiet for a long moment. Then he asked, what are your terms for peace? Helen pulled up a holographic display showing a star map. New Montana remains human territory. The Krell withdraw from all border sectors and establish a demilitarized zone. In exchange, we share agricultural and medical technology. We'll treat your wounded and allow your forces to return home. That is generous, Vekthar said carefully. Most species would demand harsher terms after defeating an invasion. We're not interested in punishment, Amy said. We just want to live in peace. But we will defend ourselves if attacked again. You've seen what happens when you underestimate humanity. Lisa spoke up with an unusual addition. There's one more thing we want. Cultural exchange. Send us students from your worlds. Let them learn about dogs, about partnership, about cooperation. Learn what? Lisa smiled and gestured to Scout. How to train a dog. How to build a relationship with another species based on trust instead of domination. Your Ravagers are powerful, but they're slaves. Our dogs are partners. Maybe your people need to learn the difference. The treaty was signed 3 days later. The Krell wounded received treatment in the colony's medical facilities, working alongside injured humans and dogs. It was strange seeing the aliens who had been enemies days before now recovering in the same spaces. Pete Harris found himself assigned to help with the Krell patients. He brought Buddy, his therapy dog, to help comfort injured colonists. To his surprise, several Krell warriors were curious about the golden retriever. What is this creature's purpose? One young Krell soldier asked. His name was Rekton, and he had a plasma burn across his chest. Buddy is a therapy dog, Pete explained. He helps people feel better when they're hurt or scared. How does he do this? Pete smiled and gave Buddy a signal. The dog approached Rekton carefully, sensing the alien's nervousness. Buddy sat down beside the bed and looked up with gentle brown eyes. He just is there, being calm, being friendly. Sometimes that's all someone needs. Pete paused. Want to pet him? He's very gentle. Rekton hesitantly reached out with his 3-fingered hand. Buddy stayed perfectly still, letting the alien touch his fur. After a moment, the dog's tail began to wag. He is soft, Rekton said, surprised, and warm. Dogs are social animals. They like being close to others. It makes them happy, and it makes us happy too. Over the following days, Rekton kept asking to see Buddy. The young Krell soldier had never experienced anything like the simple comfort of a friendly dog. In Krell culture, animals were either food or tools. The idea of keeping one as a companion was completely foreign. 3 months after the battle, the first group of Krell students arrived on New Montana. Commander Vekthar had personally selected them, choosing scientists and young officers who could learn and adapt. Rekton was among them. Lisa and Pete organized the cultural exchange program. They started with the basics, teaching the Krell students about animal behavior, training methods, and the history of human-dog relationships. This is Scout. Greg Palmer introduced his dog to the class. He's a working dog trained for detection and protection, but he's also my friend and companion. The Krell students watched as Greg put Scout through a series of commands. Sit, stay, heel, search. The dog performed each task perfectly, clearly enjoying the work. Why does he obey? One student asked. You do not threaten punishment. Because he wants to, Greg explained. This is fun for him. Working with me makes him happy. When he does a good job, I praise him and sometimes give him treats. That positive reinforcement builds his desire to work. Rekton raised his hand. But he could refuse. He is not forced. Exactly. Scout chooses to work with me because our relationship is built on trust and affection. If I was cruel to him, he would fear me instead of loving me. Fear makes a dog unreliable. Love makes them loyal. The students spent weeks learning basic dog training. Each one was assigned a young dog to work with, teaching them simple commands and building a relationship. It was slow, frustrating work for the Krell who were used to technology and logic. Dogs didn't respond to logic. They responded to emotion, to tone of voice, to body language. Rekton worked with a Labrador retriever puppy named Max. The puppy was energetic, playful, and completely uninterested in following commands at first. Rekton grew frustrated trying to make the puppy obey. You're thinking about it wrong, Pete told him. You're trying to control Max. Instead, try to communicate with him. Show him what you want, reward him when he does it, and be patient. This is inefficient, Rekton complained. A properly programmed robot would obey instantly. True, but a robot doesn't care about you. Max will. Give it time. It took 3 weeks, but Rekton finally managed to teach Max to sit on command. The moment the puppy's rear end hit the ground, Rekton gave him a treat and praise. Max's tail wagged furiously and he jumped up to lick the Krell student's hand. Something changed in Rekton that day. He had made the puppy happy, not through programming or force, but through teaching and patience. Max chose to obey because it made both of them happy. I understand now, Rekton said to Lisa that evening. This is not about control. It is about partnership. Now you're getting it, Lisa replied with a smile. The news of the Krell's defeat spread through human and Krell space. The story became legend, a small colony that defeated the mighty Krell Dominion with the help of domesticated dogs. Humanity's reputation changed overnight from peaceful colonizers to formidable defenders with mysterious, powerful allies. The Krell faced their own internal crisis. If they could be defeated by humans and dogs, what else had they underestimated? The Council of Commanders began reviewing their entire approach to conquered species. Maybe strength wasn't just about weapons and numbers. Maybe there were other forms of power they had overlooked. Back on New Montana, life slowly returned to normal. The destroyed buildings were rebuilt. The wounded healed. The dogs who had fought in the battle became celebrities, with people coming from across the colony to meet them and hear their stories. Duke, the German shepherd who had started it all by attacking the first Ravager, recovered from his injuries and returned to the Patterson farm. Henry Patterson installed a monument in his front yard, a statue of Duke standing proud, commemorating the dog who refused to run when monsters invaded his home. Scout continued working with Greg, now training other dogs and handlers for the Colonial Defense Force. Every human settlement in the sector requested their own. 2 years had passed since the Battle of New Montana. The small colony that had defeated the Krell invasion was now famous across human space. Tourists came to see the memorial gardens where statues of the brave dogs stood. Students came to study at the new Interspecies Partnership Institute that Lisa Grant had founded. Military personnel came to learn the tactics that had won an impossible victory. But the most important visitors were the ones who came to learn about dogs. Jake Morrison, now promoted to Planetary Defense Commander, stood at the spaceport watching another shuttle arrive. This one carried 30 young people from Earth, all accepted into the new K9 Handler training program. Behind him, Scout sat patiently, older now and with some gray in his muzzle but still alert and ready. That's the 5th training group this year, Amy Carter said, joining him. King walked beside her, moving a bit slower than he used to but still devoted to his handler. We're going to run out of space if this keeps up. Helen is working on expansion, Jake replied. The Colonial Council approved funding for a new training facility. We'll have room for 100 handlers and 200 dogs. The new arrivals filed out of the shuttle, their eyes wide as they took in the famous colony. A young woman approached Jake nervously. Her name was Sarah Price, Helen's niece, and she had traveled halfway across the galaxy to be here. Commander Morrison, she said, I'm here for the handler program. I've wanted to work with dogs my whole life, and after hearing what happened here, I knew this was where I needed to be. Jake smiled and gestured to Scout. This is Scout. He's retired from active duty now, but he still helps train new handlers. Want to meet him? Sarah knelt down and Scout approached with his tail wagging. The dog sniffed her hand, then gently licked her fingers. It was his way of saying hello, of accepting her into the pack. He's beautiful, Sarah breathed. Is it true he took down 3 Krell soldiers by himself? Not by himself, Greg Palmer said, walking up with a young German shepherd named Ranger. Scout never fought alone. That's the whole point of what we teach here. Dogs and humans are stronger together than either could be apart. The training program had evolved significantly since the battle. It wasn't just about teaching dogs to fight. It was about building the kind of partnership that made fighting possible. Trust, communication, and mutual respect had to come first. Everything else followed naturally. Pete Harris, now the head instructor, gathered the new students in the main training hall. 50 dogs of various breeds waited with their temporary handlers, all rescue dogs or donated animals ready for their new purpose. Welcome to New Montana, Pete began. You're here because you want to work with dogs. Maybe you want to be military handlers or search and rescue or therapy work. Whatever your goal, you'll start the same way every handler starts, by building a relationship. He gestured to the dogs. These animals are incredible. They're loyal, intelligent, brave, and capable of amazing things. But they're not tools. They're not weapons. They're partners. If you can't understand that difference, you won't succeed here. Lisa Grant took over the briefing. Over the next 6 months, each of you will be paired with a dog. You'll learn to train them, care for them, and work with them. Some of you will fail, not because you're bad people, but because this partnership isn't right for you. That's okay. It's better to learn that here than in the field. She pulled up a holographic display showing footage from the battle. The students watched in awe as dogs and humans fought together, perfectly coordinated, turning certain defeat into victory. This is what's possible, Lisa said. But it takes time, patience, and dedication. The dogs you see in this footage had been working with their handlers for years. Some, like Scout and Greg, had been together for a decade. You can't rush this kind of bond. While the human students began their training, another ship arrived at the spaceport. This one came from Krell Space, and it carried something unprecedented. 50 young Krell who wanted to learn about dogs. Rekton led the group. He was older now, more confident, and he had Max with him. The Labrador Retriever was fully grown, healthy and happy, wearing a special harness designed for Krell handlers. When Rekton had returned home 2 years ago with a dog, it had caused a sensation in Krell society. Some had been horrified. Others had been curious. Slowly, very slowly, attitudes were beginning to change. Rekton, Jake greeted him warmly. Good to see you again. And Max looks great. The Labrador's tail wagged at hearing his name. He remembered Jake and Scout from his puppy days. Max approached Scout, and the two dogs greeted each other with the casual friendliness of old acquaintances. Thank you for accepting our students, Rekton said. The Council of Commanders has authorized this program officially. They wish to understand what our military could not, how partnership makes you stronger. How are things in Krell space? Amy asked, changing, slowly but changing. When I returned with Max, many thought I had been corrupted by human sentiment, but then others saw how Max responded to me, how he worked with me, how he seemed to genuinely care about my well-being. It made them question our assumptions about strength and loyalty. He paused, looking at the memorial gardens visible in the distance. We have begun discussions with the 17 species we conquered. Not all will forgive us, but some are willing to talk. Your colony taught us that there are forms of power we never understood. Now we must learn them. The Krell students were housed in a separate facility, adapted for their physiology but close to the main training grounds. Lisa had carefully selected older, calmer dogs for them to work with. Animals that wouldn't be frightened by the aliens' appearance or smell. The first week was difficult. The Krell struggled with concepts that came naturally to humans. They wanted to command and control. They expected instant obedience. They got frustrated when dogs didn't respond the way they wanted. A young Krell named Talvin was paired with a senior golden retriever named Cooper. The dog was patient and gentle, perfect for a beginner. But Talvin kept making the same mistakes, trying to force the dog to obey rather than encouraging cooperation. This is impossible, Talvin complained to Pete after a particularly frustrating session. The creature ignores my commands. Because you're giving commands without building trust first, Pete explained. Cooper doesn't know you yet. He has no reason to want to work with you. You need to show him that you're worth listening to. How do I do that? Spend time with him. Play with him. Feed him treats when he does something you like. Let him see that being around you is a positive experience. Right now you're just another stranger making demands. Talvin followed the advice, though it felt strange to him. Krell culture didn't emphasize play or recreation. Work was work and efficiency was paramount. But he tried. He sat on the ground with Cooper and simply petted him, offering treats for no reason except to make the dog happy. Cooper's tail wagged and he leaned into the petting. After 30 minutes, something clicked. Talvin realized he felt calmer, less stressed. The dog's presence was actually comforting. Rekton was right, Talvin said quietly. This is not about control. It is about connection. While the Krell learned about dogs, the human students progressed through their own training. Sarah Price had been paired with a young border collie named Dash. The dog was incredibly smart but also high energy and easily distracted. He won't focus, Sarah complained to Greg during a training session. Every time we start working, he sees something interesting and runs off. Greg watched Dash chase a butterfly across the training field. Border collies are working dogs. They need a job to focus on. Right now, you're asking him to work, but you're not giving him something meaningful to do. He's bored. How do I fix that? Give him challenges. Border collies are bred to solve problems. If you make training interesting, he'll pay attention. Sarah started incorporating games and puzzles into her training. Instead of just teaching Dash to sit and stay, she created obstacle courses and search games that required him to think. The difference was immediate. When Dash had interesting work to do, he was completely focused. 6 months into the program, both groups prepared for their final evaluation. The test would demonstrate everything they had learned, but more importantly, it would show the strength of the bonds they had built with their dogs. The evaluation wasn't a combat scenario. Lisa had designed it to test partnership in multiple contexts: search and rescue, medical assistance, security work, and crisis response. Each handler dog team would face challenges that required trust, communication, and cooperation. Sarah and Dash excelled in the search and rescue portion. The Border Collie's intelligence and energy, once a problem, now made him perfect for finding hidden objects and navigating complex environments. Sarah had learned to read his body language, understanding what he was trying to tell her even without obvious signals. Talvin and Cooper performed the medical assistance test. The Golden Retriever had to identify when a person was in distress and alert his handler, then provide comfort while help arrived. It was a test of empathy and awareness. Cooper performed perfectly, and Talvin showed genuine emotion when praising his dog's success. The final test was a simulated emergency where multiple teams had to work together. Human and Krell handlers combined their efforts, coordinating their dogs to